Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of Free for All Friday. Focal Point, AFR Talk, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. We'll get to round of some phone calls before the end of this segment, so if you want to call in, 888-589-8840. A couple excerpts from a speech by John Bolton, who he gave the speech this morning at CPAC, very well received again. John Bolton was the ambassador to the United Nations under President George Bush. He's very insightful when it comes to foreign policy issues. He understands the importance of a strong United States military for our own security. He said in this speech, look, the job of the United States military is not to make the world safe for democracy. The purpose of the United States military is to make the world safe for America. That is job one. And we have a president who does not understand it. This is clip number 5. Let's listen. John Bolton.
We meet in a time of true national security crisis, indeed many crises. But our biggest national security crisis is Barack Obama. This is a president who does not believe in American exceptionalism, a president who is uninterested in U.S. national security and America's place in the world, who considers our strength part of the problem.
So it says, look, President Obama does not look at American military strength as an asset, but as a liability, as a problem. He sees America as the source of evil, the source of problems in the world, the source of instability. So he's not in a position, and he is weakening the military every single day. This purge of senior level officers, they're going after the highest ranking military officer it's ever come up on court-martial charges for sexual assault. The general pled guilty today to 3 charges of adultery, which is still a crime in the military. That's 15 years in the brig. He's being accused of sexual assault. He claims he's innocent of that. And the prosecutor, the guy that was responsible to prosecute him, resigned in tears. He says, I can't do this because I believe his accuser is lying. I do not believe she is a credible witness, but his supervisors in the military, under the direction of this commander-in-chief, insisting, despite the fact that there is not a credible accuser, the Obama administration insisting that he be prosecuted for forcible rape, which is life in prison. So my point is here simply, look, he ought to be punished for the adultery. I mean, everybody ought to be punished for adultery, as far as I'm concerned. Used to be a crime in America. It ought to be a crime again, as far as I'm concerned. But it still is in the military. He ought to be punished for that, and that's appropriate. That's right. But my point is President Obama is on a vendetta to weaken this military by not only taking out senior military officials, but humiliating them and destroying them in the process. So anyway, I think that's what's going on, lowering the size of the military, reducing the budget for the military. And here is clip number 2, clip 6, John Bolton talking about the travesty of what happened in Benghazi.
But worst of all is Libya. Libya is the paradigm of the Obama doctrine's failures. The attack in Benghazi on September the 11th, 2012 was a direct attack on the United States. You know, overseas, a president's personal representative is our ambassador. So the killing of Christopher Stevens was not just the murder of an American citizen. It was the murder of the president's personal representative in Libya. And since then, the president has done nothing to avenge Chris Stevens' death. This is a terrible lesson. This is a terrible lesson for our adversaries to learn, that under Barack Obama, you can murder his personal representative and get away scot-free.
Good, strong words from John Bolton. Again, I'm not for military intervention in the Ukraine. I'll talk about what I think what will happen there at the bottom of the hour. I'm not for taking our military over there. Our military should not be there to bleed and die for Ukrainians, but our military should be prepared to punish those who take American lives. John Bolton was slain in cold blood for America, and the president did nothing. That's when military intervention was required. That attack on our compound there, that was an attack on American soil. That was an attack on the on the United States of America that mandated, required, demanded a strong forceful military and, if necessary, lethal response. We did not get it. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Kenny in Houston, Texas. Kenny, if we can grab Kenny and bring him in. Kenny, Houston, Texas, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I got a statement and then also a question that I've been concerned with over the years. But, it was ironic that Rick Perry mentioned California exodus and New York exodus, because I moved to Texas a year ago and for a job, and I got a killer job over here. I left some family behind, as far as my daughter and my grandkids, but the deal is we voted out, my question is, we voted out gay marriage in California. I forget the proposition, think of a date.
Proposition 8.
And then, a year later, this federal judge pops up and, says, guess what? You know what? And I'm not sure about this, but the conservative friends that I have back there told me that he was involved in a gay relationship, and he wanted to further that relationship. So that was part of his motive to say it. And then all of a sudden now in Texas, this federal judge Garcia is doing the same thing. I think they just did it in Kentucky, too, or they added to something that was already there.
Yep, they did. No, you're exactly right. Just judicial activism and judicial tyranny. And you're right about the judge in California, Von Walker. He was in a long-standing homosexual relationship, so he was in a position to issue a ruling that would benefit him personally. He was in a position to issue a ruling that would give him the ability to get married, and with whatever perks and benefits come along with that, should have recused himself, because that's one of the things that's one of the highest standards of judicial ethics. You've got to avoid the appearance, any appearance of conflict of interest. All right, Kenny, listen, I appreciate the call. Let's go to Mac in Georgia very quickly. Mac, what's on your mind?
Hey, thank you for taking my call, Brian.
Yes, sir.
I was just thinking, if the churches, the Christian churches that believe in Jesus Christ, why don't they talk against that each Sunday against same-sex marriages in every church as it opens the doors?
Well, and I don't think, Mac, and I appreciate your call, I appreciate the suggestion. And again, I don't think churches need to make an issue out of this every week. I'm not saying that because there's a whole counsel of God that needs to be taught. But what I am saying is I think when pastors get to passages in the Bible that touch on marriage and touch on the family, they ought to take the occasion to remind the people in their congregations of the biblical standard of human sexuality, the biblical definition of marriage, and to urge these people to stand for that, to defend it, to refuse to back down if they're in private conversations with family members or at work, to refuse to back down. You don't have to be belligerent or obnoxious, but you can say, look, I believe marriage is the union of one man and one woman. I believe this is God's design, and I'm going to defend that point of view. And don't let yourself get pushed around. Don't let yourself get bullied into capitulation. And when you go to the polls, vote your values. It's amazing to me the number of Christians that will go to the polls. They personally are pro-life and they're pro-marriage, but then they'll go vote for somebody who has exactly the opposite worldview. So they bifurcated their world, separated their faith from the world. That's something that we're told never to do in the scriptures. By the way, I think I said John Bolton was assassinated or murdered in Libya. It, of course, was Ambassador Chris Stevens. Focal Point AF for Talk, back with Don and Sandra Tipton. Stay with us.
Here's Twyla Brady.